You can look at any automobile being sold today, anywhere in the world, and in some way, you will find something that was first influenced by the cars back in the 1930s.
The pre-war cars, late 20s to late 30s, really a decade. Absolutely incredible. A unique time capsule, and it'll never be repeated, I'm sure of that.
They're just so much fun to look at, you know. Taking something from nothing and really making something out of it is the most enjoyment I ever had in my life. I'm Pete Todo, and I collect classics. Well, I grew up right here in Hobart, Indiana, basically here all my life, you know. My interest in cars when I was young was the lack of. I never had a car. We never had a car in my family until I was 16. Just when that interest sparked it, you couldn't have something. Now, you know, you go to work and you could have it, you know.
When I arrived with Bill this morning to meet Pete Todo and look around the collection, there's always that air of uncertainty. What we're going to find, how we will be greeted. I have to say, instantaneously as we walked through the door here, I felt at home.
Pete has a facility, as you look around here, that's real. This is a building that reflects who he is. He's unpretentious. He's not trying to impress people. He just likes being in a place that connects him to the history of these cars and why he owns them. These cars feel like they belong in a facility like this.
This building was owned by Isaacson Chrysler dealership, which they built this building in 1928. And since 1928, it's been a Chrysler dealership. I've walked by here many, many times all my life.
Of course, he didn't know when he was a much younger man he would end up buying the building, but I think that's a wonderful thing.
The Chrysler Dealership Corporation said, build a new building. So they did. The Isaacson family built a big new facility on the highway. So that's when I bought it. I purchased it with the mind of putting old classics in here.
So to have all of that nostalgia, the memories of being a kid here, and then being able to buy the building, and then really to put the icing on the cake is to fill it with these beautiful pre-war late 20s, 30s cars that Pete is so passionate about, and being able to do all the work himself.
Taking a body off a car, down to the bare chassis, taking it to the sandblaster, and then putting it back together was probably the most enjoyment I ever had in my life.
And we don't get that with a lot of owners of some of these collections. They have their crew or their team come in and do all of the dirty work, you might say. Not Pete, he's in there working on these cars and making them right.
The passion in the classic cars, mainly one thing, which would be the coach builders.
Back in that time period, it was very, very common for Duesenberg and the other big manufacturers, well, the luxury car manufacturers, to be known for producing the drivetrain and the chassis, but not the body.
You sourced it, of course, to a coach builder like Murphy out of Pasadena, California, and you got a Murphy body, and you had to go through that process. Then you got the car back, price of approximately $8,000 in 1931 for the engine and chassis, and then another $8,000 for the body.
That was a time when the country was going through the Great Depression. People were selling apples literally on the street corner to buy food for their families.
Those with huge money could afford the absolute best in automotive engineering, and where there's a market, people will try and play to that market.
Although the manufacturers could not build as many of them because the customer base was shrinking, there were still enough people to keep those companies going. It almost seems impossible, and yet these cars prove that not only was it possible, it happened. When you say the word Duesenberg, even people who aren't real die-hard car people, they're familiar with that name and they're familiar with the image of that car. I think people are going to love to see the Duesenbergs that Pete has in his collection. One of them is a specific favorite of mine.
1926 Duesenberg, the coach builder is Mills Puck and Irish, you know, pretty interesting. But a lot of the Duesenberg Model A's had a coach builder of Mills Puck and Irish. So about 18 years ago, I bought the engine and chassis only. It had not had a body on it, but somewhere down it shows, I heard there's a body laying somewhere for a Duesenberg Model A. So I called around and I knew there was a doctor out in L.A. He was a heart doctor. Sure enough, I touched base with him. He said, yeah, I got the body for your car, Pete. I said, you're kidding. And then I remarried the body back onto the engine and chassis.
It's a Duesenberg that has the original sheet metal and paint, if you can believe that. It's not a show winner because it is in that same original appearance. The patina is incredible, and the car runs and drives. You don't see cars like that very often, certainly not a Duesenberg. And he has a Model J.
It was really in ruins. It was really in bad shape. And I even have pictures of it in a junkyard. So I restored the car myself. It was a 6-year restoration, but right here in this building, there's a 1928 hoist there that I pulled the engine out with and redid the engine right here on the floor. Took the chassis down to bare chassis, sandblasted and painted. Did 100% chrome on it, painted it interior. And it was just one of the most enjoyable times of my life, restoring that 1931 Durham Tourister Duesenberg.
Packard was one of the makes that was called one of the 3 Ps. Packard, Peerless, Pierce Arrow. Packard was a premium automobile from day one. This was a car that helped to popularize the slogan that Packard used, ask the man who owns one.
Packard is a phenomenal car. Actually, they're much better than a Duesenberg. They drive 3 or 4 times better than a Duesenberg, and they've had a lot more models. Packard was built in Detroit, Michigan. Again, with the cheap labor in the 30s. If you pick the high-end Packards, you got to pick your coach builder as this 34 LeBaron. So I really liked the LeBaron Packards because of the long hood and the pontoon fenders. It just gives it that Art Deco style that is just, it's phenomenal.
Pete has a 1931 Packard 840 convertible coupe. Convertible coupe kind of means the top goes down, but when the top is up, it kind of resembles a closed car. So that's where that terminology came from.
But the 840 is just a higher-end car, which higher-end cars, they're longer wheelbase, larger engines. That is probably the best driving car I've ever drove.
This Packard, quite collectible. Around 2,000 of these were built. Not a fully mass-produced automobile, but again, it reflects kind of the luxury, the performance, and the image that Packard was famous for at that time in the face of lots of competition. Well, you know, it's one thing to have beautifully restored automobiles, and we all love those, but every now and then you see a car from that time period that is in totally original condition, like the 1933 Packard 1101 series.
It is a cabriolet. The cabriolet has the crank-up windows on the side. It's not a roadster. And found this car many years ago, and the owner of it had it for 40 years and never had it running. I purchased a car 10 years ago, and of course, first thing I gotta do is get the motor running. I love engines first.
You can look at this car and basically it tells you its life story. And a fully restored car can't do that.
It has 100% original paint, and interior is pretty much shot, but it's just kind of cool the way it is. So it's a good running car, and the original paint on something is, to me, is just to die for. It's just too cool. It's only original once.
One of the landmark automobiles in Pete's collection is the 1930 Cadillac V16 Roadster. And what makes this car, I think, so special? First of all, 1930 was the debut year for this monster engine.
Cadillac was the only one that did the 16 cylinders. There's 952 parts on just the top of the engine to make the overhead valve work. Very complicated.
But the idea behind it is the more cylinders you're using means that you can have a much smoother engine when everything starts to run correctly.
Smoothness, precision, performance, refinement, all the things that a luxury car should have. Not only then, but today, they were doing in 1930. And now we zip ahead to 1938 for another V16 Cadillac. This car is the second generation of the V16 engine.
Although this V16 overhead valve engine is a beautiful piece of engineering, boy, is it complicated and is it expensive.
Of course, the Great Depression started kicking in. Then they switched to the flathead, which, because of dollars, they just couldn't afford to make them anymore.
The styling of this automobile is basically the responsibility of a man whose name you've heard many times, Harley Earl. He was a big fan of the aviation industry, and you see how the smoothness and the flowing lines of this car reflect what was being done in the aviation world, too. So a special car for the Cadillac brand in 1938.
The Stutz Motor Car Company, built in Indianapolis, Indiana, by Harry M. Stutz, really liked to do racing.
But much of their background came from automotive racing experience. You're in Indianapolis, the Indy track, the Indy 500 is all part of that. That becomes part of the DNA of the company. Racing heritage, sell cars. It worked then, it works today.
Stutz was also responsible for some very appealing luxury automobiles as well, as we see in Pete's collection.
1930 Stutz MB convertible coupe. MB basically means 145-inch wheelbase, really long wheelbase. They produced 3 of them, and we have 2 of them in existence today in the building.
And once again, these cars were the epitome of luxury, the exterior, the interior, the appointments, the quality of construction.
And then there's a 1930 M Stutz convertible coupe. It's basically original paint, patinaed pretty well. And the difference from an M to MB, M is a shorter wheelbase. So it's just more of a conservative car, probably selling in the range of about $2,800 brand new in 1930.
Mr. Stutz, who started that company, was really a guy that was a fan of high-end vehicles, as the cars in Pete's collection will definitely demonstrate.
Beyond all these beautiful pre-war cars that Pete Todo has in his collection here, he also has a couple of hot rod drag racing cars.
1932 Ford Deuce Highboy, all steel body. But the key of it was who it was built by. It was built by Pete Chakoris. In this particular 1932, he built it with his own hands.
There is a man who, in any book that writes about the original classic hot rod, you'll find it. It takes me back to all of the great magazines back in the 50s and 60s where you see cars like this or this car itself, the original version, on the cover. Great piece of nostalgia.
Pete Chakoris owning it and building it, it's just an honor to own that car.
Well, you want to talk about a throwback car, and if you'll just allow me, back when I was a teenager and I was a drag racing geek, the gas coupes were probably the most colorful cars in drag racing.
1941 Willys Coupe has a blower on it. When I was a teenager, about 10 minutes from here, there was a beautiful drag race track called US 30 Drag Strip. Don Perdone, everybody raced there. So I guess, the racing got into me. I just could never lose the feeling. And that's why I have the Willys Coupe. I took it to the drag strip and raced it 12 times. I said, that's enough, because I was tearing the car up, I think.
They would run 10 or 11-second quarter miles. They would bounce and they would leap and they would jump and jive. And to get to the finish line, you were a real man, let me tell you. The kind of an automobile that took no mercy on you. But boy, they were fun to watch. But the one thing that made these cars so special was the way that they sat, the attitude, the gas coupes. Straight bar axle in the front, the nose would be up in the air, big slicks in the back. A lot of them were supercharged like this one with a big GMC-style blower up out of the hood.
The paint job was done by a gentleman that I can't believe what he did with the paint job. There's acid drops on it, and then there's webbing painted on it, so it's just like I had different cars with all these different paint jobs on it, and it just brings all, the teenager thoughts back to it, and it's so enjoyable. The reason I'm selling now is that my dear friend, that we've been working on these classic cars and muscle cars since 1981 together. Well, he kind of has health issues. And now it's basically I do things by myself, and it's just not the same, and without your dear friends to be able to work on cars with you. That's half of the enjoyment of it. What's going to be a little difficult about it is the cars I restored to the bare chassis myself right here in this building.
I think in Kissimmee 26, when Pete consigns his collection to Mecum and we see them cross the block, it'll be a fabulous experience for everybody there just to enjoy these wonderful cars.
It is going to be very emotional, but I know whoever buys these cars or someone like me that are going to enjoy it. And the hope I have in it is that they have as much fun with them as I do, and I know they will. They're going to have more fun, and it's just rewarding to me for that.